What's up? Dennis here, Analog Archives. Been a minute. Too much work. Anyways, I decided to do this Dark Path. He has a challenge that he wanted to defend horrible albums. So, taking the challenge. Check out his page. Matt over at Dark Path. I'll put a link in the description. Check him out. Always has excellent content. Killer metal collection, among other things. Listens to a lot of shit, as you all should. But so horrible album challenge. So this would be basically albums that most people consider pretty bad. The consensus is that it's not a good album by this band. Usually the reason why is because either they had member changes or pressure from the record label to make something more accessible, or they just had different musical tastes at the time and they changed their styles. So it's kind of kicking the balls for a lot of fans because they're used to hearing a certain band they grew up with, and all of a sudden they've changed their style and now they sound like a band you don't like, music you don't like, because usually what they do is they try to sound current. So, and especially with metal, they want to sound like whoever's popular at the time. And a lot of these bands are from the 90s, so they're going either for an industrial, grunge, or groove metal sound, going from death metal or whatever, thrash metal, and now they want to sound like, you know, the next Pantera or fucking Alice in Chains or whatever, or fucking Nine Inch Nails. So these bands changed. Some of them, it's just a different style of music and it's just off-putting to the fan. So a lot of these albums I'll try to defend. Some I maybe a couple I really can't. I just can't listen to. But I pulled out a bunch. So let's get started. Before we get started, we're jamming this, which is kind of one of those records. Dark Angel, Time Does Not Heal. I think after Leave Scars, this is a little more technical. It's a little more, the singer's a little more high range vocals, which is a little off-putting sometimes. I'll be honest, it took me a while to get into this. It was a throwaway album for me when it first came out. I was like, it's like, okay, they're moving more into melodic metal, but now I listen to it, I'm like, man, this shit fucking rips, man. So it just goes to show you. And a lot of these, I'll explain to you that it's how, when I grew up listening to these records and what the sound was like and what the abruptness was, that either I didn't like this album or why most people didn't like the albums. It's not just me. Personally, it was most people didn't like these records. But so this one too, not a lot of people, there wasn't a lot of Dark Angel fans left at this time, and I don't know when this came out. I want to say like 90 or something. Just a guess, I have no idea. I don't see a date on it, but late 80s or early 90s when death metal was reigning supreme. So got lost in the shuffle, but excellent record. Maybe a little overlong. The songs are a little overlong, but for the most part it's pretty badass. Picked this up. I don't really drink Sierra Nevadas, but I saw this Dankful IPA. Piqued my interest. It's pretty good. Alright, let's start off with some popular ones. Celtic Frost, Into the Pandemonium. I know most people will grab Cold Lake, but if you really want to go timeline wise, it would be Into the Pandemonium when they change their sound. So I would see this album as a progression from Megatherion to this to Cold Lake. And I think kind of Tom talked about that in interviews, that was his idea behind these records, is they all had this kind of this progression, or however he was thinking about it, that they would kind of meld into, like, from Megatherion to Cold Lake. So if you kind of listen to them in that way, it makes sense. But if you're just a casual listener and this album came out, it's very different. A lot of operatic vocals. And then they did like that Wall of Voodoo song, Mexican Radio, which was pretty pathetic. I wish they wouldn't have put that on this record. I don't know why they did, but I like this record. I always liked this record. I was never not a fan of this record. I think it holds up. I don't listen to it that much, but I listen to it more than Cold Lake. I would say Cold Lake is kind of a fun listen once in a while, but it's not something you grab like, hey, I'm gonna go listen to some records, let me grab that Cold Lake. Maybe if you're having a party or something, you grab some Def Leppard, grab some Cold Lake, grab some Motley Crue and some Judas Priest, you're all set. But this album doesn't really fit into that genre. It's in between those, kind of, but it doesn't really sound like Cold Lake. Like, his vocals are leaning more towards that direction, where he kind of went after that with Vanity Nemesis and continued that style, but brought back the heaviness and experimentation of this album, but without as many operatic vocals. So anyways, check this out if you haven't. Go back to it. Pretty kick-ass record that a lot of people didn't like, and I'm sure a lot of people haven't gone back to it just because they were just done. So this next one, this is Sabbat from the UK, and this is Morning Has Broken. So this one came out after they had a couple of badass albums, which was History Before Time and Dreamweaver, which are both fucking amazing fucking thrash records. Then the singer left. I think they got a new guitarist. The singer went on to do Skyclad, and the music on this is pretty good, but the singer is fucking annoying as fuck. I don't know what to say, but yeah, I try to listen to this again, and this is, even the rhythms, he just does not fit into this band. I'll give you a perfect example, and I know a lot of people like this other band, and maybe some people like this if they heard this first, maybe, but Onslaught, In Search of Sanity. That album, I love fucking Steve Grimmett, and I love Onslaught, but those two mixed, it doesn't work for me. I've tried to listen to that album multiple times, and it's just not happening for me. Same thing with this. And there might be people that like this one, but for me, no, still can't do this one. So try to defend the music a little bit on this, but the vocalist he's got to go. Up next, so this is a surprise. A couple of these next two are going to be surprises for you guys. Entomb, Clandestine. Now, most of you would say, well, what are you talking about? It's a fucking classic album. But you have to think, this came out after Left Hand Path, which is a completely different sound than this album. So when this album came out, just going to shows and stuff, man, I would talk to, like, guys I knew in the scene, and they're like, that new Entomb fucking blows, dude. Like, what the fuck? They sound like Slayer. Like Slayer was a bad word. So, and I'm like, well, I liked it. I liked the album. I knew it was definitely different. I always loved Left Hand Path more. But it's just funny how, like, now this album I've heard people say this is the best death metal album ever released, but at the time it was not looked upon as a good album. So most of the people in the scene just hated this record. So hanging out with bands and stuff like that, and they're like, garbage. But I kind of always defended this album, even back then. And then, eventually people came around on this, so I'm glad, because it has some excellent songs on it. It's no Left Hand Path, but it's pretty badass. Alright, up next, here's another one. Now this one, I think this record is huge as far as a band transitioning to something else, and then people hating them, probably never going back to listen to them, and that's Slayer, South of Heaven. So this was a huge departure from Rain and Blood, Our Hell Awaits, Our Show No Mercy. This had more to do with more heavy metal, more Judas Priest, Black Sabbath type influences. So I remember when this came out, and I was like, that sounds different, but I like it. I actually like this more than Rain and Blood. I thought this was a great album, has great songs on it, great songwriting on this record. One of a kind, never be re-recorded. Same thing, I like the first 4 Slayer albums, maybe even 5, like Seasons too. Like those albums, you can't, like those are all so different, but they're all so good. I mean, up until Seasons, which is a little overrated, but I've always said that. I thought they just mixed this with Rain and Blood to get Seasons, but this album stands on its own, which is a great album. But even if you read, and I was reading something from an old SOD magazine where Slayer had released a record and they were interviewing them, and I think the record was like, it was either what's that record called? Not Divine Intervention. It was Divine Intervention, or the one after that, God Hates Us All. And they were interviewing him, and they were like, oh man, you're going back to like, thrash metal, blah blah blah. All your records are badass except that one. And they were talking about this. Like even then, like guys are still holding a grudge on this record. So it just goes to show you, even in like the late 90s, early 2000s, they were still holding a grudge on that record. But now, everybody loves it. But I'm sure there's still those guys that don't. Here we go. This one, Destruction, Cracked Brain. Again, new singer. I think they got a new guitarist on here too. But this album smokes, man. I like this better than Release from Agony, honestly. And the singer's good. He's like a mix between like Schmear and what's the dude from Metal Church? I can't remember his name. Well, anyways, the guy from Metal Church and Schmear, kind of like a mix between that. This shit rips, man. Technical thrash, really catchy, hooky riffs. But again, after Release from Agony, this came out, this thing was in the bargain bin constantly. Like, nobody gave a shit about this. But, he had a little bit more higher range, so the thrash fans were out. You got to remember, back in the day, the thrash dudes, they didn't want like high-end vocals. Especially during this time, we wanted brutal shit. So this shit got just right into the bargain bin. But fucking check this out if you haven't, or if you like thrash, speed metal. This shit's badass. Here's kind of a crossover gem. Well, it's not really a gem, but it's one of the more hated Suicidal Tendency albums. The Art of Rebellion. It's a little underrated, but on the other hand, it doesn't have the greatest songs on it. They were just coming off their big album. I can't remember the name of it, but the one before that, not How Will I Laugh, but yeah, How Will I Laugh, I think was the name of that record. So they were coming off that record, and this was more melodic, a lot more melodic, and Mike Muir goes off on random tangents, like he does in concert, kind of, where he's just like what if I did this and you did that and blah blah blah. It's like, dude, what the fuck? And then there's like slap bass constantly. So, but anyways, it's a decent album. I've grown to like it more. I can listen to this now. I didn't used to like this at all. I thought it was a piece of garbage. I'd never listened to this back in the day. I was like, man, what do they do? This sucks. And again, it's signs of the times. So this came out when, you know, grunge and everything was popular. They had to do something to keep themselves relevant. So they came out with this, but it didn't pan out for them. The next album after this was like Suicidal for Life, which was actually a good album. It's pretty underrated. I recommend that one, although it has some kind of cheesy lyrics, but don't they all? Oh, here's another one. So these dudes, Megadeth, Cryptic Writings. I remember buying this on a whim. Was that like on lunch? I was on lunch break and I went to a mall and I saw this. And I said, new Megadeth. Let me grab that. And I was pleasantly surprised. This is a total commercial album. I think even back in the day, I heard songs from this on the radio, on my local radio station in the Bay Area. They would play songs from this album, like the two songs, Trust and something else. I don't remember the name of the other song. When the man used the man. So anyways, yeah, so they would play songs off this, and yeah, man, stoked. Great album, great songwriting again on this. Very, very commercial. I can see why people hated this record, and I get it, but I didn't mind it. So I thought this was actually a pretty killer album. I listened to it a lot back in the day. I thought it was just a cool record to jam to when you're driving to work or whatever. Still like this album. I listened to it, holds up. Killer shit. Not my favorite Megadeth album, obviously, but it's a good record that people hate because, you know, it's commercial. This one, man, I tried. Danzig, Black Acid Devil. Wow, this is a bad record. I listened to this recently. It's like so Danzig has a niche where he sounds like fucking Elvis and Jim Morrison wrapped into one, right? So why are you gonna go away from that formula and try to do some fucking weird ass industrial record, which makes no sense? Yeah, so he tries to sound like 9 Inch Nails or something here. This shit's, it's pretty bad. I try to even do a few listens, like maybe I'm missing a song here or there, but you know, let me know in the comments if you think this is a good album. But I'm pretty sure everybody pretty much threw this album in the trash. I never hear anybody mention this, but I still have my copy, so maybe I'll give it another spin in a year and I'll like it. I doubt it. But I try this one. This was Kreator, Cause for Conflict. So this record came out, I want to say mid-90s? I don't know. I didn't look it up, so don't quote me, but they had a couple albums before this, Endorama and the one with the Outcast and Endorama, right? Which were more industrial, experimental records that they had with some metal stuff, which honestly I haven't gone back to listen to. I didn't care for those records. I might own one of those. I might own both actually, but this one came out and not everybody, but a lot of people hated this record because they thought it was like, it sounded like nu metal. I heard this in a Tower Records when it came out. They were playing it, and I was like, what is that? It's pretty badass. And it's like, that's a new Kreator. I'm like, what? So I grabbed it. I grabbed the CD, not this Polish press, but this album rips. I just listened to it again. I like this Kreator album. They did a remaster for it, I think either this year or last year. Shit rips, man. Pretty super underrated Kreator album that a lot of people hate on. I guess I don't know why. I try to listen to it. Maybe like it has some groove to it, but it's not like Pantera or anything like that. So I would say this just compares to like the newer stuff, but it's more brutal than that. So I don't know. I don't know why this album gets so much hate, but check it out, man. This, if you haven't, or just revisit it, sounds good to me. All right, these next two kind of go hand in hand, which is weird because they're not anywhere close to each other, but they have like this same element, and some of the songs sound very similar, and both albums were hated on. So the first one, Exodus, Force of Habit. This shit rips, man. Yeah, it's got a couple throwaway songs. It's got like some funk song on here that sucks and like a cover song or something. So it's got like 2 or 3 shit songs on here that are garbage. But the rest of the album, the riffs on this shit fucking rip, man. They're groovy. Yeah, they're groovy, but they're like in your face, like fucking, I don't know, man. Especially the Architect of Pain, that shit just, it's a crusher. One of Exodus's best songs. This album cover is probably one of the worst album covers. It looks like some fucking like like some opera or something like that. Like if you saw this in the bargain bin, you'd be like, what is that? Like, why would they give the go ahead on this? They don't even have the logo. It's super weird. But it's got the bangers on this, man. It's got every song on here is good except for like those few I mentioned, but check it out. Let me know what you think if you haven't listened to it in a while. This I always liked, even when it came out. I always thought it was a good album. So, but it goes hand in hand with this record because a lot of the sound and the groove sounds a lot like this, which is Carcass, fucking Swan Song. There's some very, very similar riffs on both these records. Again, this album, oh man, this album got hated on back in the day. So Heartwork came out. I'm not a fan of Heartwork, really. I like this album better than Heartwork. This album holds up. Heartwork if you like Heartwork, great. But some of the songs on Heartwork are just, they start out good and they don't go anywhere. For me, they meander on, or they just fizzle out somehow. But these are full written songs. You could tell they spent a lot of time writing these songs. They sound great. Still holds up. Again, yep, there's some groove to it, but it's not death metal. I would say it's, I don't know, death thrash, I guess. It's not really thrashy, but his vocals don't sound that different from Heartwork. And the guitar tone is similar. It's just different style, but this album rips. Give it a shot. I know I stayed away. I'm not gonna lie, I stayed away from this record for a long time. I did not want to hear this kind of stuff, but you grow, you listen to different stuff, obviously, you go back to stuff, and this album is killer shit. Here's one. I'm gonna do actually, let me do this CD first. So these guys were death metal from Sweden. I think they're from Sweden. Cemetery. They did Evil Shade of Grey, and their follow-up was this, Godless Beauty, and it is completely different. This is not death metal, although it does have like It does have gruff vocals, don't get me wrong, but this is more in the vein of a mix of death metal with like Sisters of Mercy and I don't know what else, but it's gothic death metal basically, but it's rocky. It's rocky. That's what I'll say. Definitely rocky, but fucking love this record. Very great songwriting again on this. Very catchy shit. Check it out. If you like Evil Shade of Grey, don't expect that. Alright, this one I'm going to do 3 records by this band because these all got hated on. Voi Vod, Angel Rat. Man, this album is awesome. I love this record. I remember when it came out, this, again, straight to the bargain bin. Nobody cared about this album. After, what was the one before this? Nothing Face, I think. I don't remember. It might have been Nothing Face. I think it's before this. But then this came out, and it's completely different. This doesn't sound like that at all. So I think a lot of fans were discouraged, and that his voice sounds a little different. But man, the songs on this are really, really good. Super psychedelic and just amazing shit. This album is, I could tell, I saw an interview or something where they said they wanted Voi Vod to become commercial because I think they were on a major label. Yeah, this is on Mechanic. So they wanted them to have a radio song. So they came out with what they thought was a commercial record. But it's Voi Vod. I don't think they could write anything that's commercial enough to play on the radio. So anyways, this shit's a banger. I'm sure a lot of you guys know this album, but for those that don't, check it out. And then this one, this was Megaton by Voi Vod. And this is when they got the other singer, Eric, I don't remember his last name, and Snake left the band. So, and then they went for this, and again, everybody hated this one. Oh, I liked this album when it came out. I remember thinking, yeah, this sounds good. It definitely leans more towards that groove metal vein, but in a way only Voi Vod could do. So it's cool in that way. But yeah, you can hear some Deafened and Pantera groove metal leanings in that stuff, and especially with the more, mainstream vocals that are on this record. So I can understand why people hate on this, and I get it. It's not the first Voi Vod I grabbed, so, but decent record. And then this one, I think this actually came out before that. Chronic. This is Voi Vod's attempt to be industrial, and it's the same lineup from Megaton. I think they were in the studio and they did both these records. And again, this shit is good. I really don't not enjoy any Voi Vod, so. But yeah, this is a good record. Definite industrial Ministry, 9 Inch Nails type of vibe on it, mixed with Voi Vod. So if that sounds like your bag, good shit. And then this one, Asphyx with God Cries. So again, different style on this. Then this is probably the fastest Asphyx album, and it's got the original singer on it. Man, this is a good album. I really like this album, but I really like the original singer, so that's why. Theo. So he came back for this record. It's fast. It does have doomy shit in it too, but it has that intensity that I love from the first Asphyx lineup, and they brought that back for this, and it's really good. I know a lot of people don't like this album just for the fact that it doesn't sound like a traditional Asphyx album, which makes sense. But you know, give it a shot, man. Try to listen to it from a different perspective than I want it to sound like the Rack. You know what I mean? So just give it that chance, and you'll probably like this record. And then last but not least, Morbid Angel, Domination. What was this song? This was like on Giant Records or something. I think it was their second like major label release after Covenant. Look at that cover, it's fucking horrible. I think the CD that I have, or the cassette I have, has a different cover that's worse than this. Like computer generated shit, which is a straight turnoff for anybody trying to buy death metal. Like, one of the main things you buy death metal for, if you don't know a band, is the cover. But this album is good. I like this better than Covenant. Has some great songs on it. Where the Slime Live. I mean, shit, this album rips. But it got shit on when it came out. Nobody cared about this album. I mean, I found this in the bargain bin. I got 2 copies of this I found in the bargain bin that nobody wanted. That's how much people hated this record. They just didn't care about it. It was a has-been band at that point. Nobody cared about Morbid Angel, and they weren't putting out anything that people thought was stellar. And like I said, and I've said this in one of my previous videos about Covenant, that the scene lost interest in Morbid Angel when Covenant came out because they became this commercial band you would see on MTV. So that they automatically lost their cred with the fan base. And I know a lot of you guys don't understand that, because you just, when you're hearing that album now, not living it when that album came out, you're like, what? That album's sick, man. But there's a lot of I don't want to say politics, but there's a lot of credibility to bands in small scenes, and when you fucking do stupid shit like they did and come out with like commercial albums and turn away from your fans, you're gonna lose that fan base. It's just, that makes sense. So, and I get it that you guys, a lot of people love that album or love this album, but when they came out, nobody gave a shit about them. That being, Covenant was a huge success for them, but a lot of like the old school dudes in the scene just, I mean, they were done with that band. They had lived. It's kind of like when Entombed came out after Wolverine Blues. It's just they're headed on this downward spiral where they're not sticking to the roots really, and they're going away from that sound. But especially in death metal, I think you grow this kind of fan base where it's all do-it-yourself stuff and people support you. And when you kind of turn your head on them or turn away from them to make money or whatever it is, it kind of bites you in the ass. But is what it is. Anyways, but I like that album. I think the album cover's fucking hilarious, but for all those dudes that hated it and you're old and you're like, I'm not gonna listen to that crap, come back and check it out. I know even my friends back in the day were like, oh, this shit sucks, dude. Doesn't sound like fucking Altars. Right? Anyways, I think that's it. I'm gonna try to do another video this week. I got this Wednesday coming up. I have it off, so I'm gonna try to do a Halloween video with some fucking horror soundtracks, and I'll make sure to do this a lot. But I'll see you guys soon. Try to do this challenge if you want. Try to defend some records in your collection that you maybe think stink, but you can see some good things to them. So shout out to Matt Dark Path, and go check out his video on this and see what you think. All right, man. Take care.